Attention is the cornerstone of effective learning, serving as the brain's gatekeeper for information processing. Without attention, incoming stimuli are filtered out before they can be encoded into memory, making learning inefficient or even ineffective. The brain does not treat all information equally. It prioritizes what is relevant, salient, or rewarding, and attention determines which signals cross the threshold for further processing. Neurochemicals such as dopamine and norepinephrine play a crucial role in this process. When dopamine levels rise in response to novelty, reward, or meaningful engagement, the brain signals that the current experience is important, heightening focus and making it more likely that the information will be retained. Similarly, norepinephrine, released in response to arousal and alertness, enhances the signal-to-noise ratio in neural circuits, ensuring that the brain pays attention to relevant details while filtering out distractions. Together, these neurochemicals create a neurobiological environment optimized for learning. The role of attention in learning is not merely passive, it actively shapes the encoding of information. Focused attention recruits the prefrontal cortex, which governs executive functions such as working memory, planning, and decision-making. When attention is high, working memory capacity expands, allowing the brain to hold multiple pieces of information simultaneously and form associations between them. This enhanced connectivity increases the likelihood that incoming information will be integrated with existing knowledge, creating stronger and more durable memories. Conversely, divided or distracted attention reduces the effectiveness of encoding, as the brain struggles to form coherent neural representations of fragmented or incomplete information. Novelty and emotional salience amplify attention by engaging motivational circuits in the brain. Experiences that are surprising, meaningful, or personally relevant trigger dopamine release, which not only captures attention, but also signals that the information should be prioritized for memory formation. This is why learning is often more effective when it is engaging, interactive, or emotionally charged, rather than purely passive. Lectures, reading, or repetitive drills can be less effective if the brain does not perceive the material as relevant or significant. Incorporating elements of novelty, challenge, or personal connection into learning experiences ensures that attention is sustained and information is encoded more effectively. Attention is also influenced by physiological states. Sleep deprivation, fatigue, or elevated stress can impair attentional capacity, making it difficult to encode or retrieve information efficiently. Conversely, moderate arousal, proper nutrition, and physical activity enhance attentional focus, preparing the brain to process and retain information more effectively. Even brief periods of focused engagement, followed by short breaks, can improve sustained attention, allowing the brain to reset and maintain optimal performance over longer learning sessions. Strategies to optimize attention include minimizing distractions, setting clear learning goals, and actively engaging with the material. Techniques such as summarizing information, asking questions, or teaching concepts to others force the brain to maintain focus, reinforcing the neural circuits responsible for attention and encoding. By deliberately directing attention, the brain becomes more efficient at determining which stimuli are relevant, enhancing both immediate learning and long-term memory formation. Ultimately, attention is not merely a prerequisite for learning, it actively determines the quality and durability of memory. Through neurochemical modulation, focused engagement, and deliberate strategies, attention shapes the brain's ability to encode, consolidate, and retrieve information, forming the foundation for all effective learning. Sleep and rest are fundamental to memory consolidation, the process by which the brain stabilizes newly acquired information and integrates it into long-term storage. Learning does not end when the material is first encountered. Rather, the brain continues to process and organize information offline, strengthening neural connections and selectively preserving what is important. During sleep, particularly in deep, slow-wave sleep and rapid eye movement, REM sleep, the hippocampus, a region critical for short-term memory, replays recent experiences, communicating with the neocortex to transfer information into long-term memory networks. This replay strengthens synaptic connections, reinforces learned patterns, and integrates new knowledge with previously stored information, making recall more reliable and adaptive. Without adequate sleep, these consolidation processes are impaired, and even highly attended or well-practiced information can fail to be retained. Different stages of sleep contribute uniquely to memory consolidation. Slow-wave sleep is associated primarily with declarative memory, which involves facts and explicit knowledge. During this stage, the hippocampus repeatedly reactivates patterns of neural activity experienced during learning, while the neocortex gradually absorbs and stabilizes these patterns for long-term retention. REM sleep, by contrast, is more closely linked to procedural memory, emotional memory, and creative problem-solving. During REM, the brain reorganizes and integrates experiences, strengthens associative networks, and supports the ability to apply learned information flexibly. This complementary function of sleep stages highlights why a full sleep cycle, which alternates between slow-wave and REM sleep, is essential for optimizing both retention of information and adaptive use of knowledge. Even brief periods of rest or reflection during wakefulness can support memory consolidation. When the brain is allowed short intervals of quiet or low-demand activity, neural circuits involved in recent learning continue to replay and process information. This offline processing reinforces synaptic pathways and strengthens memory encoding. Studies have shown that taking short breaks after intense learning sessions improves retention and problem solving, demonstrating that memory consolidation is not solely dependent on sleep but benefits from distributed periods of rest and cognitive downtime. Spaced repetition, a learning strategy that distributes practice sessions over time, leverages the principles of consolidation to enhance retention. By revisiting material after intervals of rest or sleep, the brain repeatedly reactivates and strengthens the relevant neural circuits. This repeated activation ensures that memories are not only preserved but also more easily retrievable in varied contexts. In contrast, cramming or massed practice provides minimal opportunity for consolidation, leading to fragile memories that are prone to decay or interference. Physiological states during sleep and rest also influence the effectiveness of memory consolidation. Adequate oxygenation, balanced neurochemical signaling, and regulated stress hormone levels create an optimal environment for synaptic plasticity. Chronic sleep deprivation, or elevated cortisol, impairs hippocampal function and disrupts communication between brain regions, reducing the efficiency of memory consolidation and impairing learning outcomes. Conversely, high-quality sleep combined with brief reflective pauses during learning maximizes the stabilization and integration of information. By understanding the critical role of sleep, rest, and spaced practice, individuals can structure learning experiences to take advantage of the brain's natural consolidation processes. Proper timing, adequate duration of sleep, and incorporation of rest periods amplify the durability and accessibility of memories, transforming short-term exposure into long-lasting knowledge that can be applied effectively in real-world contexts. Active recall is one of the most powerful tools for strengthening memory and enhancing learning because it forces the brain to retrieve information rather than passively reviewing it. When we simply reread notes or listen to a lecture, the brain's engagement is limited, and neural pathways associated with the material are not reinforced strongly. Active recall, on the other hand, requires intentional effort to access stored information, which strengthens the connections between neurons and improves the ability to retrieve that information in the future. This process leverages the principle that memory is not static, it is dynamic and shaped by repeated activation of relevant neural circuits. Each act of recalling information reinforces synapses, increases signal efficiency, and makes the memory more durable. The effectiveness of active recall is amplified when combined with spaced repetition. By retrieving information after increasing intervals of time, the brain repeatedly activates the neural circuits associated with that memory, reinforcing them and transferring them more robustly into long-term storage. This approach exploits the natural processes of forgetting and consolidation. When a memory begins to fade, effortful retrieval strengthens it, counteracting decay and making it more resilient. Spacing these retrieval sessions over days or weeks ensures that learning is not superficial or short-lived, but deeply encoded and accessible under varied circumstances. Active recall also enhances learning by engaging multiple brain regions simultaneously. The prefrontal cortex is recruited to organize, plan, and execute the retrieval of information, while the hippocampus coordinates access to stored memories. When recall involves problem-solving, explanation, or application, additional regions such as the parietal cortex and motor areas may be activated, particularly if the task requires integration of knowledge or physical demonstration. This broad recruitment strengthens the network of connections associated with the memory, making it more flexible, integrated, and useful in real-world contexts. The use of testing or self-quizzing is a practical form of active recall. When individuals attempt to answer questions without referring to notes or resources, the brain is forced to search for and reconstruct information. Even if the recall attempt is partially incorrect, the act of retrieval engages synaptic pathways and highlights gaps in understanding, creating opportunities for correction and reinforcement. Teaching concepts to others is another highly effective method. Explaining material in one's own words requires active retrieval and reorganization of knowledge, which further consolidates memory and improves comprehension. Contextual and emotional engagement enhances the effects of active recall. Memories that are associated with meaningful, emotionally charged, or personally relevant content are retrieved more easily and strengthened more effectively during recall sessions. By linking new information to existing knowledge or experiences, the brain creates associative networks that improve both retention and application. Combining active recall with multisensory input, visual aids, auditory cues, or kinesthetic experiences further strengthens encoding and retrieval pathways, making learning more robust. Active recall transforms passive exposure to information into a dynamic, interactive process that directly shapes neural architecture. It not only reinforces memory, but also improves comprehension, critical thinking, and the ability to apply knowledge in new contexts. By incorporating repeated, effortful retrieval into learning routines, individuals can optimize memory retention, strengthen synaptic connections, and create neural circuits that are resilient, adaptable, and capable of supporting lifelong learning. Spaced and interleaved practice are two of the most effective strategies for enhancing learning and memory because they leverage the brain's natural processes of consolidation, retrieval, and adaptation. Spaced practice, also known as distributed practice, involves spreading study or practice sessions over time rather than massing them together in a single session. This approach works because the brain needs intervals to consolidate newly acquired information and strengthen synaptic connections. When learning is spaced out, each session acts as a retrieval opportunity, reactivating neural circuits associated with the material and reinforcing long-term memory. In contrast, cramming provides intense exposure in a short time, but does little to promote durable memory, as the neural pathways remain fragile and susceptible to forgetting. Interleaved practice complements spaced repetition by mixing different topics, skills, or types of problems within a single session. Rather than practicing one type of problem repeatedly before moving to another, interleaving forces the brain to continuously switch contexts, evaluate differences, and adapt strategies. This process strengthens cognitive flexibility and encourages deeper understanding by making the brain work harder to discriminate between concepts and apply appropriate solutions. Interleaving challenges the brain to encode information in a more robust and interconnected manner, creating memory representations that are more accessible and flexible in novel situations. The combination of spaced and interleaved practice optimizes the brain's neuroplasticity. Each spaced session triggers dopamine and norepinephrine release, which enhances attention, motivation, and memory encoding. Interleaving requires active engagement and problem-solving, recruiting the prefrontal cortex, hippocampus, and other associative areas to integrate multiple types of information. Together, these strategies encourage the formation of durable, distributed neural networks that support both recall and adaptive application. The repeated retrieval inherent in spaced practice also strengthens the pathways responsible for active recall, ensuring that memories are accessible and resistant to decay over time. Spaced and interleaved learning also align with the brain's natural forgetting curve. After initial exposure to new information, the likelihood of recall diminishes rapidly unless the memory is revisited. Spacing sessions allows for reinforcement at critical points, counteracting forgetting and enhancing retention. Interleaving further strengthens this process by presenting material in varied contexts, which helps prevent overfitting of knowledge to a single scenario and encourages flexible application. This combination is particularly effective for complex learning tasks, where understanding relationships, distinctions, and context-dependent application is crucial. Practical applications of these strategies are wide-ranging. In academic learning, spaced and interleaved practice improve comprehension, problem-solving, and exam performance. In skill acquisition, such as music, sports, or language learning, alternating between different exercises or techniques, while spacing practice over time enhances both retention and adaptability. The brain learns not only to perform individual tasks, but also to switch efficiently between them, anticipate outcomes, and integrate knowledge across contexts. Physiological and emotional factors further amplify the effectiveness of these strategies. Adequate sleep between spaced sessions facilitates memory consolidation, while moderate stress and novelty increase arousal, dopamine, and norepinephrine levels, enhancing attention and encoding. Combining spaced and interleaved practice with active recall, multisensory engagement, and meaningful context creates a highly potent learning environment, one that optimizes both the structure and function of neural circuits. By intentionally incorporating spacing and interleaving into study and practice routines, learners can strengthen memory, enhance cognitive flexibility, and ensure that knowledge is both durable and adaptable. These strategies transform how the brain encodes, integrates, and retrieves information, turning transient learning into lasting expertise. Multisensory and contextual learning significantly enhances memory encoding by engaging multiple neural pathways simultaneously, allowing the brain to create richer and more durable representations of information. The brain does not process information in isolation. It integrates sensory inputs, emotional context, and prior knowledge to form cohesive neural networks. When learning involves multiple senses, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and even olfactory or tactile cues, the brain recruits diverse regions, strengthening connections between them and creating multiple retrieval routes. This redundancy ensures that memories are more accessible and less vulnerable to forgetting, because the information is stored across interconnected networks rather than relying on a single pathway. Contextual learning further reinforces memory by embedding new information within meaningful frameworks. When learners connect new material to prior knowledge, real-world examples, or emotionally significant experiences, the brain forms associations that enhance recall and understanding. The hippocampus plays a central role in this process, integrating spatial, temporal, and relational information to create a contextualized memory trace. Memories tied to context are easier to retrieve because the brain can use cues from the surrounding environment, previous experiences, or emotional state to trigger recall. For instance, associating a historical event with a vivid story, image, or even a smell can make the memory more salient and accessible compared to abstract or decontextualized information. Combining multisensory engagement with contextual relevance also strengthens neuroplasticity. Each sensory modality activates specialized cortical areas, while context and emotional significance recruit limbic structures like the amygdala, which amplifies dopamine release. Dopamine acts as a tagging signal, indicating that the experience is meaningful and worth encoding. This chemical reinforcement enhances synaptic strength and supports long-term potentiation, the cellular mechanism underlying memory formation. By layering multiple forms of input and embedding them in context, the brain builds a more robust and interconnected memory network, which improves both retention and the ability to apply knowledge flexibly. Active strategies can further enhance multisensory and contextual learning. For example, combining reading with diagrams, verbal explanations, or hands-on experimentation engages multiple modalities simultaneously. Teaching others, role-playing, or using analogies forces the brain to encode information in diverse ways, linking abstract concepts to concrete experience. Even physical movement or gesture associated with a concept can reinforce encoding, as motor regions become integrated into the memory network. These strategies create multiple retrieval pathways, making information more easily accessible in varied situations and promoting deeper understanding. Contextual learning also interacts with emotional and motivational systems. Material that is personally relevant, interesting, or emotionally charged is encoded more efficiently because it activates dopaminergic circuits, enhancing attention and signaling importance to the brain. Linking new knowledge to existing experiences or goals provides this motivational context, increasing engagement and ensuring that the brain prioritizes the information during consolidation. Conversely, decontextualized or purely abstract learning may fail to trigger these neurochemical and network-level mechanisms, limiting retention and practical utility. By leveraging multisensory input, meaningful context, and emotional relevance, learning becomes more efficient, durable, and flexible. The brain integrates information across sensory, cognitive, and emotional domains, creating neural networks that are both resilient and adaptable. This approach not only improves recall, but also facilitates the application of knowledge in novel or complex situations, ensuring that learning is not only retained, but usable. Emotional and physiological states play a critical role in learning and memory, influencing the brain's ability to encode, consolidate, and retrieve information effectively. The brain is highly sensitive to internal conditions such as stress levels, arousal, fatigue, and overall well-being, all of which modulate neurochemical systems that support learning. Moderate arousal, for example, enhances attention and activates dopamine and norepinephrine pathways, signaling the brain that the current experience is important and worth encoding. These neuromodulators sharpen focus, increase working memory capacity, and strengthen synaptic connections, creating optimal conditions for memory formation. Conversely, chronic stress or extreme emotional states can impair hippocampal and prefrontal cortex function, reducing the efficiency of learning and making memory more fragile. Positive emotional states such as curiosity, interest, and enjoyment directly enhance learning by engaging reward circuits in the brain. When the brain perceives a task as enjoyable or meaningful, dopamine levels rise, increasing motivation and the likelihood that attention will remain sustained over time. This creates a feedback loop in which engagement leads to better encoding, which leads to successful retrieval, which further reinforces motivation. Emotional relevance also helps anchor new information to existing knowledge networks, improving retention and facilitating the integration of new skills or concepts into broader cognitive frameworks. Physical activity is another critical factor that interacts with emotional and physiological states to optimize learning. Exercise increases cerebral blood flow, delivering oxygen and nutrients to active brain regions, and stimulates the release of growth factors such as BDNF, which support neurogenesis and synaptic plasticity. Even moderate movement, such as walking while reviewing material or incorporating gestures during learning, can enhance attention, memory consolidation, and the flexibility of neural networks. Regular exercise also improves mood and reduces anxiety, creating a stable emotional environment that supports both the acquisition and retrieval of information. Stress management is essential for maintaining the physiological conditions necessary for effective learning. While acute stress can heighten alertness and improve short-term performance, chronic stress elevates cortisol levels, which can impair hippocampal function and inhibit the formation of long-term memories. Techniques such as mindfulness, meditation, deep breathing, and controlled exposure to challenges help regulate stress hormones, stabilize mood, and maintain an optimal neurochemical balance for learning. These practices not only enhance attention and memory, but also improve emotional resilience, enabling the brain to process complex information under pressure. Sleep is another physiological state that profoundly impacts learning and memory. During sleep, the brain consolidates information, strengthens synaptic connections, and integrates experiences into existing neural networks. Insufficient or poor quality sleep reduces the availability of neuromodulators, impairs attention and working memory, and diminishes the efficiency of memory consolidation. Ensuring adequate sleep combined with positive emotional engagement and physical activity creates a foundation for optimal learning and cognitive performance. By attending to emotional and physiological states, individuals can actively shape the brain's readiness to learn and retain information. Cultivating curiosity, reducing stress, maintaining physical health, and ensuring restorative sleep create a neurochemical and neural environment that supports attention, consolidation, and retrieval. Over time, these practices enhance cognitive efficiency, memory durability, and the ability to apply knowledge effectively across contexts, demonstrating that learning is not purely cognitive, but deeply intertwined with the body and emotional experience. By intentionally managing emotional and physiological states, learning and memory can be optimized in a way that aligns with the brain's natural biology, creating conditions of moderate arousal, positive engagement, stress regulation, physical activity, and adequate sleep ensures that neural circuits are primed for encoding, consolidation, and retrieval. Over time, these practices enhance focus, resilience, and cognitive flexibility, allowing individuals to retain information more effectively and apply it in meaningful real-world contexts. This demonstrates that learning is not solely about effort or repetition. It is deeply influenced by the state of the brain and body, and by nurturing these states, we can maximize the efficiency, durability, and adaptability of memory.